It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Awesome.
Peachy.
Groovy.
Hope everybody out there is doing all right. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, other than the fact that we obviously need to get a better thesaurus so we can come up with better stuff to answer on that with. That was pretty sad. Well, gosh, let's see. It's funny. I was getting ready to say, well, now all the horror's over, but there's kind of a small catch to that. The last 2 days of Halloween, the last 2 days of October, they dropped what had to have been a good 12 hours worth of content.
Wow.
So where I caught up, I stayed caught up until like the 28th or 29th, and then, yeah, no, I'm going to be listening to that crap for a couple more weeks, just trying to get through it all. And don't get me wrong, it's all awesome stuff, but man, by the time I'm done, I'm going to be ready to be done with that for a while. But it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. But one thing I have managed to finally start forcing myself to do something else as well, rather than just listening to horror podcasts, because, man, that'll mess with your psyche after a while.
Right.
I have started and have gotten about halfway through. I picked up I don't remember if I mentioned it on the show, I picked up the Gardner Fox book, Forgotten All-Star. That's the name of it, right? I got the name right. Okay. Yes. Yep. I picked it up, and I've gotten about halfway through it, and we will probably talk about it later when more of us have read it and finished it. But I'm really enjoying it. It is really good, and that is what I will say about it. So at this point, I don't want to go into any detail because I want to finish it before I get into any detail about it. But I am liking it so far.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Cool.
Okay. Les, you want to go next?
I'm sorry to say I don't have much of anything to come up with. Just a typical week for me. So kind of keep my eyes open, and I've been blurry-eyed from watching Rear Window and Psycho over and over, but I will stop down any time to watch those.
Are you having trouble with that neighbor again? Jeez.
Yes. Do you know of anybody that can do me a big, big favor?
You know, it was free tree day yesterday, so I do have a pickup truck and shovels. Just saying.
Wow, that got dark fast.
I'm Psycho.
I'm sitting here thinking, man, those are awesome movies to have to watch all the time. But again, screwing with your psyche, sort of thing.
Right.
They're a little dark.
I guess it's a carryover from all the horror. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on right now.
Could be.
Liz?
Well, I haven't really read a lot this week. I'm trying to catch up on fall TV has started. But I don't know if any of you guys have been able to catch the new Watchmen series that's come out. It comes out on Sundays. Like right now I'm missing the episode.
Gee, sorry.
2 episodes in, and at the end of episode 2, you're kind of going, what the hell did I just watch? I mean, you think you're doing good, you know what's going on, this is this, and this is who this is, and then just a big freaking spaceship drops out of the sky. So, very interesting. I'm kind of excited to see where that goes. It's gotten mixed reviews, which I don't really think is fair. People are like, it's too political, and you're like, you guys remember Alan Moore wrote the original, right?
Right. You read the original graphic novel, right? It was
Yeah,
all political.
It was very political. So, just a different time period. What's sad is watching it, I don't really see it as being too political. It's just sad that the time period they're talking about, we just haven't progressed much from that point, you know. So it's not, you know, it kind of shines a light on, hey, we need to grow more. But I like it. It's not an in-your-face, here's a moral of the story you have to learn or anything like that. And had I have not read reviews, my first word to describe it would have not been political. You know, it is about cops in that political sense, but you know, I'm really enjoying it. It is kind of different from you know, the original, of course, just time period alone. But Alan Moore's daughter, her name escapes me right now. She's been posting out on Twitter after the episodes and that kind of stuff, and even she's like, you know, I'm kind of impressed where this is going. So that's kind of what made me think maybe I need to watch this. You know, I just remember when the series came out, it kind of divided people of you shouldn't have messed with the story. This was his. And I've always been a firm believer, as long as people are reading, it shouldn't matter what comic you're reading, just get a book in your hands. As long as people are reading, this industry stays around. It shouldn't matter if they get the same ideal from it that you did or didn't, you know, just they're reading. Yay, you. So, but yeah, Watchmen seems pretty good. I'm still losing my freaking mind over Supernatural.
That's not going to change anytime soon.
No, not at all. But you know, this past week was Halloween, and they've been posting what all the celebrities were wearing and that kind of stuff. And I kind of think that Jensen is listening to our podcast, because guess what he dressed up as this year? Batman.
Well, he did Red Hood last year.
Yep. And
Because
actually,
nobody has ever dressed up as Batman before. Gosh.
yeah, but you know.
Good point,
I
Mike.
said
Good
it.
point.
But he didn't look half bad, so it's kind of made me excited about Robert Pattinson, because I didn't see him like that, but I didn't see Jensen like that. Well, I did, but you know, I didn't think a producer would see Jensen like that with me. But the more and more they keep releasing about the new Batman movie, I'm kind of excited. I mean, Matthew McConaughey as Two-Face. All right.
Oh, he'll only be able to say it twice.
Right.
He'll only be able to say it twice.
Now that I had not heard.
I think it was some of the casting choices. Is it Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman? And it's like, man, she's freaking beautiful. Once again, not somebody who I would have thought to play the part, but once she was cast, it was like, well, hell yeah. I mean, she's going to rock it. So far it's been, I'm kind of impressed with the casting on this one. I can totally say that I'm so glad that Jonah Hill is a greedy asshole, because he's kind of distanced himself from the film, and I can't see him in a Batman film. I can't. So, and kind of the attitude that he took on it kind of reminded me of Jack Nicholson with Burton's Batman, how he wanted to be paid more than Keaton and wanted to have name and first billing and that kind of stuff. Well, Nicholson had the name behind him to be able to demand that and get that. But Jonah Hill, he kind of said, sit down, boy. We'll go somewhere else. And I'm kind of glad they did. You know, everybody who's been picked for this has been like, hell yeah, I want to do that. Not, well, let's see, maybe. So if you ain't excited, get off our train.
You talk about the casting.
Mhm.
Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. Yeah, I like that. I know that's raised some eyebrows and some ire, but I dig it. I dig that casting.
Yeah.
I loved all the stuff they were saying about how okay, now you realize that this means that Batgirl's got to be black, right? That just cracked me up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right, and then my deal is that why would anybody care? But
It's crazy, but they do. I mean, they lost their minds over the casting of Ariel. It's like, guys, you realize this is a kids movie that we're all up and screaming about and everything else. And the girl they actually picked to play it, once again, name's failing me. She's a beautiful singer. She's gorgeous inside and out. She's just that kind of person. Meet her on the street and you'd swear she was a Disney princess. So why not? Why does it matter? And it's acting. She's not really a mermaid either.
right, if you can't get a real mermaid, what are you going to do? I mean, come on.
Right?
What?
I know.
Shocking.
I mean, Daryl Hannah was busy.
I guess. I want to meet the real crab they're going to get to play Sebastian. That's what I want.
yeah, really.
Yeah. To me, I guess I've never really taken that to consideration. It's always been, well, can they act? What have they done in the past? And which is why I was Robert Pattinson, he's gorgeous. I wasn't worried about that end of it, but the only thing I really know of him is a twinkling vampire. So it's kind of like, no. But I think Les brought up some different movies that I had not seen him in, and it really made me reevaluate him as an actor, and he's not that bad.
From what I've heard from people who've watched some of his more independent movies, they said, yeah, they could see it.
Yeah.
If you watch some of the independent movies that he's starred in or has been in, they can definitely see it. Just don't go by just Twilight.
Right. Which is honestly, that's what he's known for, though.
Well,
It's like I said, I'd never seen any of the indie films, So I'm kind of, and then to see the dedication he has and the training that he's done, and these people he's hired to get him into shape. It's kind of like, yeah, I mean, that's all we want is somebody to take the character and do it right, not a sad Batman.
and the thing that I've recently heard, and I hope this is true because it has me definitely interested, is the story is supposed to be inspired by The Long Halloween, which was a great story.
It is a good Batman story.
I would love to see how they're going to do that. So there's obviously going to be a lot of villains in this one if it's based off that, but we'll see.
See, and that's what we need. We need a good, in one of the Batman games, Scarecrow uses his gas on Batman, and he freaking goes into this really acid-like world. But they threw, Killer Croc at him. They threw, of course, Scarecrow at him. I think Joker even had a part in it. But it was, all in the span of a 15-minute period here. And it was so cool because, they never give us but maybe one or two, So to see them all together, and I don't know, after watching some of that, I honestly think, Joker Scarecrow is the villain that Batman should watch out for. It just, the way he can get into your mind and just totally screw you. I mean, that's Batman's biggest fear. Somebody figuring out what's behind the cowl, And boy, he had a lot of secrets that needed to come out. Yeah.
Well, there's a few of them that are everybody thinks about Joker, but I can point out that Scarecrow's one you should be worried about. Hugo Strange,
Yeah.
Ra's al Ghul, Riddler, who's going to be in the Batman film. Riddler, if he's handled right, he could be just onto mental level.
Yeah. Well, and even the Mad Hatter, they've used him at one time to control all of the villains to go after Batman, which was kind of interesting. And, I think that's part of what we've been missing in these Batman movies and why everybody's kind of like, nah, give us what he's known for, not a bunch of explosions and driving in fancy cars,
Well, yeah, the technology, the killing, that kind of stuff actually show him be more of a detective. We've not seen that much about it.
No, it's almost an afterthought.
That's because detectives are boring. Which is why they don't show them on TV at all, right?
But a good Batman story, that's kind of the cool part, is watching how he unfolds it layer by layer by layer, That's why everybody, the big question when they find out a Batman fan, who would win, Batman or Superman? It's like, well, Batman would have his ass handed to him the first time. Totally. I mean, just because he doesn't know what he's up against. But that second fight, better watch out, Superman. He's going to know your weakness. He's going to know where you live, what your mother's name is. It's not going to come out in a fight. He's going to know
Why did you say that name?
Right. He's going to know this the second time, because that's Batman. That's the detective part of Batman that almost makes him dangerous. It's because he knows you. He's looked into it, and, but they, like you said, they forget that, Instead of having them bling around like a voodoo doll while everybody else is kicking butt. So I'm excited about that one. And I wouldn't mind if later on they wanted to get Jensen for a Batman movie. They'll redo Batman again. This won't be the last Batman arc that we'll see. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan, it was kind of cool because he's like, hey, I'm down with that, and I'm Batman's dad. Oh, and one other thing, and I'll turn my mic over. I was reading an interesting article. I'll link it to you guys if you guys want to read it too. But one of the game makers who's making, I think it's the Avengers game now, was like, we're missing a big piece of us. And they kind of go into a Stan Lee story. And the way that Stan Lee described working with these guys, he told them, he says, you've always got to take the approach that the first time people see your work, that they know nothing about it. That maybe this is the first time they've seen Captain America or Wolverine or, whoever, and you don't want to make them feel left out. And I got to thinking, and it was like, that pretty much was Stan Lee's writing years and stuff was, you never felt like you didn't know. I'm a big Batman fan, but I got out of the main Batman line. And if I was to go back now at 87 or whatever they're at, I'm kind of lost. And I'm a Batman fan. I shouldn't feel lost reading a Batman story, So to me, that was just kind of like, wow, I wish more people would take that approach. Because I think sometimes some of these comics, I'm not mentioning names, are written with kind of like an arrogance that what's going on. I don't have to, if I have to explain myself, you just wouldn't get it, So I think maybe that's why we're struggling in the area of new readers. Maybe we've made them feel confused or they don't know what's going on, But yeah, like I said, it was a really neat, interesting article, and it just kind of reaffirmed in my man why Stan was the man, and he'll always have that mark where people who've worked with him years now are like, we can tell he's not on this project with us. We're kind of lost, which is kind of sweet, but kind of neat.
I think we've discussed this before. That's kind of the general problem with the bigger two, I guess you would say, publishers with the books, is they got to do every once in a while. They need to do a jump on point.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to force an entry. It's just that's kind of the way the writing is nowadays.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's good. It's just that's the way it is now. That it's just continually going, and it could be a story arc that's a year's worth, or it may not really have an end goal in sight. Where when I was younger, I would just pick up a book, and it was pretty much a done in one, or it may be a two-parter.
Right.
And I didn't really, and then if there was any references to something that happened before, and these talk about days gone by, and Les will remember these too. There would be usually a little asterisk by a comment on the dialogue, the word balloon, and then down somewhere at the bottom of the panel it says, "This happened in this issue." Or just some kind of reference to going, okay, this is what happened, what they're talking about.
It's called a footnote.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much a footnote, yeah.
We saw that a lot in Secret Wars, where they were like, in this issue it explains what he's talking about here. Mm-hmm. Or how about like what Marvel used to do and what Zenescope still does? When you open the book on the front page, it's like, hey, here's the road so far. This is what's happened, and here's what's happened, and now we're up to this point, where if you have read the book, skip it. If you haven't, you're jumping in. Hey, okay, Jack and Jill's going up the hill. I wonder what's going to happen now.
The problem with that is sometimes some of those are so poorly written that I've read some that I'm just like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
And this is supposed to get me ready to read this book, and I don't understand what you're saying.
Right.
So I'm like, I might as well put the book down, and I just wasted $2 or $3.
Right. See, and that's kind of that arrogance that I was talking about once again. That it's like, well, I don't really have to explain it because they've been reading it. Well, yeah, that would be great, but do you know how many titles I pick up? What if I missed yours a couple of weeks? Or, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you don't find out about a good story until later. Maybe it's something you wouldn't have normally read,
Well, there's that, and then there's the hardcore that picks up regularly. Hey, if I, use your example, Batman. Okay, here's the latest one. Came out today. I read it. Month later. Well, of course, in DC's case, it would be 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later.
Okay, how many books have I read since then? And what else has been going on in my life since then? I don't remember what happened.
Yep. Or that main cliffhanger that you thought was really clever kind of lost everybody and you did nothing to explain it, I guess some of them are really bad at that. And I've there's been stories I've wanted to read that you don't, where are they at,
Mm-hmm. This is why people prefer to wait and buy the trade.
Yeah. Right. And it's sad because that's kind of the way I've gotten. I know I kid about it, but I do have ADD, and it's sometimes it's, even after you read something, it's kind of like, huh? What did I just read? But then, like Thomas said, to add more multiple titles plus what you're doing, and so it would be nice.
Go ahead, Les.
I was going to say there are times that a trade doesn't even explain everything because what needs to be brought to your mind was done in an issue that was in a previous trade.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The thing with Marvel and so far this storyline, those confused the hell of me, just like Thomas was saying, they confused the hell out of me. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you're talking about because I am not a follower.
Yep.
And as a result, I just toss it in the stack and walk away from it.
I think that's why the multiverse also was kind of confusing for me, because it was just everywhere. Even if you did know what you read last week, it's going to be nothing like this week. You know? And I just, even when you put it in a trade, it was kind of like, wow, I still didn't know what happened there.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, that's kind of, I mean, in addition to being a failure in editing, it's kind of a failure in writing too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the kind of crap you get when you spend all of your time worrying about continuity and none of your time worrying about story.
Yep. Well, or you write with that arrogance that, well, they know, I mean, they're as smart as me. Yeah, because we know what you were thinking when you wrote that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We know where you're headed to. But yeah. And I have to say, for me, Grant Morrison is the main one who does that to me. It's hard to, some of his work I've enjoyed collected, but it's hard for me to enjoy some of his other stuff. But it's just because to me, he kind of writes with that, you should know what I'm talking about, you know. If you're a fan of Batman, you should know why I'm killing Robin, you know. So.
One of these days, he's going to come on our show, and there's
I
going to be a
know.
reckoning.
But,
all the
but,
shit
you know,
you've given him over the years.
But like I've always said, for me, it's love-hate. When his work, when I connect with it, like Klaus, oh my God, it's amazing. But when I'm totally disconnected from it, I hate it. Attack on Arkham. But, you know, it's just... But didn't he write the multiverse too? Everybody should be mad at him for that. But no, and anybody who can create a spark to, you know, that, oh, what is he doing? You're doing a good job, because you wouldn't aggravate me if you weren't, you know? So I know he's good at what he does. Tom Snyder, I know he's good, or Scott Snyder, Tom King. I know they're really freaking awesome at what they do. And they do it so well sometimes that it aggravates me. Uh-huh. But kind of what David Pepose said, that, you know, sometimes you want to get some kind of reaction. And, you know, they're getting it because they're doing it well. If it was lazy writing, it would be like, nah, you know, I wouldn't care. So.
Yeah, they would be really scared if no one was talking about what they
Right.
were writing.
Yep.
Which means that they didn't feel anything.
Yep. And you want people to be angry and frustrated and be like, man, what the hell are you doing? Because you're doing it good. That's why. We've never seen it before. Well, good. You know, I'm taking you out of your Batman comfort zone.
Well, not just angry and all that. You know, there could be some people out there that enjoy it and love it.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, yeah. So I mean.
Oh, and there probably are. There's probably people that, right. It's the apathy thing that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's when nobody cares.
Yep. And usually when they don't care, it's because it was lazy writing. You know, they didn't care when they wrote it.
As for me, unfortunately, not a whole heck of a lot on my end. A lot of real world stuff going on, but yeah, so maybe next week will be better. Before we get into this week's discussion, want to point out that we have of course, by the time this drops, our November meet and gab would have already come and gone. But there will be one in December, of course. We have it every second Saturday of the month. And for December, it will be the 14th. And if you're not familiar, if you're not aware of what our meet and gab is it's an opportunity for you, if you're a geek in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, come hang out with us. We meet at Wing City, which is located at 1456 Beltline Road. That's in Garland. The zip is 75044. And we have some good food. We have some great conversations. It's always a blast. And so come hang out with us if you'd like. And if you'd like to donate comics for comic books for kids, we will definitely take those off your hands. Once again, we're looking for all ages in teen comics, either new or relatively new, in really great shape. We'll definitely take those off your hands and get them to kids who are in hospitals and cancer centers who could use a little diversion and entertainment in their lives. So, and that's usually at 7 o'clock. So if you can make it, we would love to have you and have some fun. You can always check everything out on our events tab on the website, which is www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. And if you're following on Facebook, we'll obviously have a Facebook event set up so you can know all the details. So, hope to see you there. Alrighty. For this week, to honor, well, not to honor, but kind of just in recognition of not only a brand new film, but also the 35th anniversary of the original film, figure we'd take some time to spotlight the Terminator franchise. Really enjoyed the original film. I enjoyed T2. If you're not familiar with this film, okay, you really need to stop and go watch the film and come back. It is a story. The original Terminator is about a robot, cyborg, I guess, from the future who comes to present day, which was 84, to kill a human being, kill a woman, Sarah Connor, who's going to give birth to the leader of the resistance that actually overthrew Cybernet, which was the network that basically took over the planet. It was a little low-budget movie, but it was done so well. And it was so popular that we got a high-budget sequel and several sequels afterwards. And, of course, the latest just came out, Terminator Dark Fates. Is that the name of it? Or Dark Fate?
Dark Fate.
Yeah, Dark Fate.
So, figured we'd take some time to discuss this franchise. So, with that said, I am opening the floor.
I liked the first and the second one. I can't recall seeing the others. Isn't there like one in between here, or?
There's three and after.
Okay.
Yeah. There was Terminator. There was Terminator 2 Judgment Day. There was Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. There was Terminator Salvation. Terminator Genesis. And then now Terminator Dark Fate.
Yeah. See, I haven't seen the 3 after 2 then. I think that they told a pretty good story and wrapped it up pretty good by the end of the second one. I kind of liked the new machines in the second one compared to Arnold in the first one. And they kind of are the same kind of machines, but like black metal instead of silver metal in the new ones. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. He said he'd be back.
Well said. Well said.
I wonder if we might stumble less if we focused on one movie at a time or something.
Sure.
So, yeah, let's start with the first movie because I think that's a perfectly natural place to start.
Okay.
Go ahead.
For me, the first and the second kind of run together. I don't know. I know the story, but I don't know where it ended without going into the second one. You know? And to me, that's good when you can do that. I mean, if they kind of told the story seamlessly into the second one. But, yeah.
See, I don't have any trouble delineating because the second one, See, and I'm already letting you drag me off of the first one. The second one, I thought it was just unnecessary. How good a movie it was, I mean, it was actually not a half bad movie. I just didn't think it was. I thought they wrapped the story up perfectly with the first one. I didn't think we needed a sequel. And honestly, I mean, I was not grown up yet when this came out, and so the idea that I thought that even then, I don't know what that means about me, but probably not good, whatever it is. I just didn't think it needed to happen.
Back then, you didn't like time travel?
I was not really, honestly. I mean, I probably wasn't as hostile about it as I am now, but I was starting to figure out I didn't particularly like it, and yeah, I mean, so okay, I'm willing to live with them throwing one cyborg back into the past and screwing things up, and it manages to not actually screw things up. Spoiler. I didn't. I never thought it was a good idea to try to expand on that. It didn't. It was a fun little anomaly of a movie, I thought, and it didn't need any more than that. I thought we should do something similar, but do it differently enough that it doesn't. It would have made more sense if they had done it separately somehow.
Yeah.
I didn't need Terminator 2. I mean, I liked the first movie. I didn't need more than that.
Terminator was or 2 was kind of cool because, all through the first one we heard why she was so important, and, so Terminator 2 kind of showed us who was important and why it was so important, and, so to me it was kind of cool that we got to see the after of that, I'm
not sure I agree, though. I'm not sure it really did. I mean, by the time 2 comes along, John is born, which means Sarah's not important anymore. It all shifts to this obnoxious kid.
Yeah.
And that I think maybe that's probably part of why I had mixed feelings about it, is because the idea of telling a kid that they're the most important person in the world, that's just dumb.
Right?
Why would you do that? Why in the hell would you ever do that to any kid?
To any kid.
You will screw up any kid's brain doing that. And yeah, no, I mean.
But at the same time, if somebody came back in time and told you, hey, look, your kid is going to find the cure for cancer, he's going to find the cure for AIDS, would you let him go skateboard without a helmet? I mean, you'd want to protect that, not necessarily that he was the savior, but he did have a major role to play in helping the future,
This is a conversation that's going to get existential really fast. And probably not in a good way. No, my initial reaction to that, even given incontrovertible proof, would be to choose not to believe it.
Yeah.
No, my kid is perfectly normal. He's going to be perfectly normal. There's nothing that I am capable of doing now to protect him more than I already would.
True.
So there.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's dumb. It's based on a very weird premise for me, and like I said, probably on an existential level, it doesn't make sense to me. And so the first one, where she's not even pregnant yet, kind of makes sense. It also doesn't make sense to me to wait 12 years or whatever the hell it was. If you're in 2029, you send something back to 1984, it doesn't work. Why would you then send something back to 1992 or whatever the hell it was? I'm pulling numbers out of my ears, but
yeah.
Why would you not just send them right to like a week after?
Or when she was born.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're going to pick an arbitrary time that makes sense.
Yeah. And we never see, I think in the first, with Sarah Connor, it's Skynet that's sending these. In the newest one, it's Legion. So it's kind of like, we never really see why their reasoning behind that was. Like in the new one, they're apparently kicking ass. They don't need to go back and stop this girl. They're like taking over and almost have everybody extinct. So at that point, why would you go back? If you're winning your war, why would you go back in time?
Right.
And
That's a phenomenal waste of resources.
And the same thing with 1 and 2, my opinion was Skynet was kicking ass. They couldn't get past these things, you know, especially the liquid ones come along and they're like, you know. So what was the point to come back then? If you're winning, why come back and even try to change any of that? Because you've already been through it. You won those circumstances and you're exterminating the human race. You know, you're winning.
Right. To do it once is a weird decision. To do it over and over and over again is a flaw in the plot.
Well, it seems to me with all of these, it's always, well, we've got a better one who can do it now, though. You know, we couldn't do it with this guy.
That's fine. But again, you plant them 4 months before the first one.
Yeah.
And have them show up and watch to see what went wrong and then fix the problem. And it's all
how
over.
about help the first guy? Okay, you couldn't beat one Terminator. Can you beat 2?
Right. Especially when one knows what went wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, we're hammering this, but like I said, we actually like the movie.
We
The
do,
first one,
yeah.
at least. We may disagree on some of the sequels and whether they should have existed or not, but
Well, under today's time, if Terminator 1 came out, we'd be like, man, that's bullshit, you know. But at the time when it came out, it
was groundbreaking stuff. It
was.
It was an interesting story because
Yep.
it was something that we hadn't really seen a whole lot of before. Had there been time travel stories? Sure. Had there been cyborg stories? Sure. Had there been something this kind of gritty and raw and emotional? No. Not the way they did it in 84. No.
And when that nuke bomb went off in the first one, wow. I mean, wow. You could feel the heat off the movie screen. That's how good they shot that. And, you know, to me, that really sailed the point home of why this was so important. You know, if we don't do this, this is what's going to happen to everyone, you know. And it was kind of like, wow, forget the cyborg. You know, that nuke bomb was something else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that I enjoy seeing kids melt on a screen, as we said, but like the effects were just like, wow.
It was well shot.
Yeah. But that's been the theme for all of these too. Even if the story lacked, he always gave you good visuals. I'll say that about the new one too. The story lacked, but the visuals were amazing.
Oh,
you know?
I think it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say that about every James Cameron movie.
Right.
I mean, they're all spectacles. I mean, he's practically Michael Bay, for crying out loud.
Well, and not only does he get the visuals down, he's got the right mood music going behind it, and you know, it's a good formula. These first two were all right. I think the third one wasn't the kid in the third one. I can't remember, but
He was a little older in the third one, I believe.
Yeah.
He was older, yeah.
Hey, that's the one where he was a teenager.
yeah. So I may have seen that one, but
The second one was where he was a teenager, and then the third one he was older from that.
and wasn't Sarah locked up in a asylum at that point?
Well,
Or was that the second one?
that was the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, they had to break her out.
Yep. But I think even James Cameron would agree with us on the other three, because the new one picks up right after the second one.
Well, that's kind of a trend in movies now. I mean, we just had that with Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
The last Halloween basically just said
Yeah, even two didn't happen.
Even 2 didn't happen. The
Yeah.
original second film didn't happen.
Yeah, the one that started 5 minutes after the first.
Right.
To me, sometimes that's cool, but sometimes it's confusing,
It is.
Like Star Wars. People are like, well, how do you watch them? The way they came out. That's how you watch them. I don't care about this 5 is first and 6 is like, no, watch them the way they came out. That's the way he told the story. That's the way it should be watched, Plus the first 2 are the best. Get them hooked so they'll watch the others.
Right. Well, yeah. That's a big part of it, but
Yep.
yeah. Otherwise, just watch them however the hell you want.
But I think they even have like box sets out where they're in the order you're supposed to watch these. Well, why didn't you put it out that way?
Because some people can't stand to not dick around with his own creations.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I wrote 5 more chapters to this book. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right.
When?
Like when you made Luke kiss Leia, you didn't know that was her brother.
Now, keep in mind, unless I'm mistaken, and I'm totally just pulling this off the top of my head, Leia initiated all the kisses between those two.
Pretty much.
Am I right?
Yeah.
You are.
Just a thought. I mean, not that it makes any difference. Neither of them knew, but
Yeah.
I think it says something about Leia's character a little bit, but the independent streak.
Yeah.
But anyway, Terminator.
Against the norm.
Terminator. We will talk Star Wars down the road. We're talking
almost
Terminator.
certainly.
Les, would you like to jump in?
The first Terminator movie I thought was really well done. I agree with everyone. The second one was okay. Third one was with Robert Patrick, wasn't it?
Oh, that was the second one. The third one was with what's her face? I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Christina
Loken. Right.
Loken, yeah.
Oh, Christiana Logan.
Yeah.
Well, then the third, to me, it lost punch. The second one was very intriguing because of the upgrade. You folks were discussing, would you send another one back? That's like the Martians coming to Earth, finding that they die from bacteria. At least in most prospects, they did not send another invasion group because they kind of figured out that, hey, well, we can't do this, not until Mars attacks anyway. I would be fine with them ending at 2 because, yes, John is the one they need to do away with. And at the time that they were sending someone back, John had already defeated the robots. So why bother? If you end him, if you take his life, then what you have then is, or what you had before him, supposedly, is not going to exist again. Who knows? Without John, there may not have even be a Skynet. I know he didn't have anything to do with the construction of Skynet, but that doesn't mean that somebody would not have had the idea for it.
But didn't they tell her in the first one he did? Because he, created the first, robotic arm of his or whatever? And then you kind of see him grow up, and it's like, man, he's kind of dumb as dirt. How did he make a robot arm? When did he have time fighting all these robots and stuff,
I don't remember that kind of detail about this movie. I'm not going to lie, I haven't seen it in a while.
I'll have to recheck, but I think it was something like that he came up with the first, that created these things.
Dude, Connor?
Was it well?
No.
No, that was the other doctor that they went and killed, right? I'm
It
confusing my movies.
was Cyberdyne Systems that basically created Skynet. Well, and that's I agree to a point what you were saying, Mike, about it. One could have ended, and it was a perfect ending, and they really didn't have to go anywhere else. They did, with someone finding the remnants of the original Terminator and examining that, kind of, I guess it changed the timeline to where, okay, was still gonna happen, that Skynet would still happen, and Judgment Day would still happen.
Just somebody else picked up where the other one left off.
But yeah, I would have been happy if 2 would have been the last one. I thought that was a great ending. I mean, it was right down to even this black road, your road at night, and it's just kind of, and you have the narration about, all roads are just kind of open, that anything is possible. And then we get Terminator 3, and it's just like, well, it's going to happen anyway. It doesn't matter what you've done. It's still going to happen, so just deal with it.
Yeah.
That kind of disappointed me. I admit I have not seen the film. I have not seen Terminator Salvation. I have watched Terminator Genesis. It was interesting to a degree that it was sort of a reboot / retcon, but it really got so complex and maybe even convoluted enough to where I was going, what's going on here? Because it's literally retelling the original story, except for things didn't go exactly the way they did originally, and it, like I said, it really got. I'll take it back. It did get convoluted. And it didn't help that when the trailers came out, one of the big shocks of the film was pretty much in the trailer. And you're going, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah.
That should have been something that was in the film that had everybody going, oh my God. But, they revealed it for everybody. But And now we have Dark Fates, which is basically blew all that out. Okay, this didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, and I'll take it a step further. What they do kind of lets you know that 1 and 2 didn't matter anyways, So not that it didn't happen, it just didn't freaking matter at all, Yeah. Which to me was kind of like, huh.
Yeah, and that's part of my problem with everything since 2, because it's just like this whole thing of everything that they've been fighting to prevent this from happening. It's just like, yeah, you know what? Shouldn't even bothered.
Yeah. Well, and my thing too is if you're sending things back to the past, wouldn't you almost know immediately if it worked or not? If you're in the year of 2029 and I'm going to send something back to 1980 to make this stop happening and it doesn't, don't you kind of know that your plan didn't work and you need to do something else?
But would you? Here we go with the time travel thing. Would you know? How would you know? If you change the timeline, then the timeline is changed. There is no point at which you know that the timeline has changed. It's still the same timeline.
Right. Because you have changed along with the timeline.
Right.
Yeah, but if robots are tearing up your world and 5 minutes later they're still tearing up your world, nothing happened. Nothing changed. You didn't change the timeline.
But you...
Wouldn't you have notes on what you were doing?
The notes would change.
Yeah.
Everything changed, including you. Everything. This is my problem with time travel, is that you cannot go back and you cannot know what happened when you sent something back in time to change the timeline, because the timeline is changed.
Unless you're somehow detached from the timeline, which is not possible.
Right, and then you're dealing with a multiverse situation in which time travel is pointless anyway.
I say unless you're Flash.
Right. There's, yeah. Anyway, I think Tom knew this was going to happen.
And he takes great glee in it by the sound of it.
Uh-huh. You noticed that, did you?
Kind of, sort of.
Uh-huh. Again, you do it once and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's an exciting. It's a hell of a thrill ride. It's bordering on horror, honestly. To have something completely unstoppable coming after you, damn, that's intense. To do it again. So
and not to have a weapon against it.
The deal is if you're going into this with the idea that the sequel screwed it up, throwing more sequels at it is probably not your answer.
No, it's not.
Because again, it's a timeline issue. It's anyway. Yeah.
It's okay, Mike.
Fun movie. This is why I like a one movie and that's it. But I kind of came into this wanting to make the joke that this is the first Terminator movie is the movie that Cameron should have stopped with. He should have just not made any more movies. But he actually made a few good movies after this, so
yeah.
I can't really go there. I mean, True Lies probably he should have quit after that, but then again, he wouldn't have made any money if he had.
I think most his big money and fame came from Titanic, but
I think his big money came from Titanic. I don't know about fame. I think he was already pretty famous. I mean, he like I said, he had a string of hugely successful movies.
True.
He had not had a failure of a movie, basically. If you count Terminator as his first movie, which he actually did make a movie before that, but I'm sure nobody talks about that. But yeah, all of his movies have been grossly successful.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, he made multi-million-dollar documentaries and turned a profit on them. I mean, nobody does that.
No. But he gave it a good story.
What, the documentaries?
Well, yeah. Yeah. They kind of had their own story, but, you know.
Yeah, I think we're in the midst of arguing that he hasn't really given any of his movies good stories, but he's managed to make awesome movies anyway, which is entirely possible thing to do.
Yeah.
You can very well make a fantastic movie with not much story, or not enough story, or no story at all. It's entirely possible, and it doesn't make it any less entertaining, but it does make sequels trickier.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we ran into with this franchise is that, I mean, and it also doesn't help that he wasn't really involved after Terminator 2, so, or at least he didn't direct them. I'm
Yeah.
sure he had something to do with them, but hell, he sold the rights to the first Terminator movie for $1, or so the legend goes.
I will say that the verbiage of the Terminator has gone on past the movies. The Skynet was brought forward in a lot of episodes of The Big Bang Theory. How many times have you heard people just say, "I'll be back"?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many catch terms, not phrases, but terms that were promoted through other movies, TV shows, skits, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that will probably not fade away. But I agree with the others that it's lived its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm done with it myself.
It's told its story. Well, and they were saying with this new one that it's not doing too well at the box office, and they're thinking now instead of sequels that it might do better in a TV show.
Didn't they already try that once?
I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
see, the way that they've done this,
The
it's
Sarah Connor Chronicles.
it kind of set a team up, and I don't think I would be too interested in the TV series, but others might, you know. But I think they kind of did to this one what Thomas had mentioned earlier. They showed the best parts in the trailer, you know. I don't think they should have even mentioned that Arnold Schwarzenegger would meet Sarah. That should have been one of those, oh my God, in the movies. But they kind of took that from us and, you know. So yeah, I think he revealed his secrets and tricks a little ahead of time. But I can say the same as the newest as the others. The story may be a little lacking and kind of all over the place, but the visuals were spot on. I mean...
Absolutely. And that's, I think, what Cameron has become known for.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the visual quality of his movies. You want to do a sequel to Terminator? I have a crazy idea. So you get Arnold Schwarzenegger to play himself. And you have him, by some chance or coincidence, meet Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton, who then mistakes him for the original Terminator and then starts hunting him like the Terminator hunted her for the whole movie.
Yeah.
With
where she is.
Arnie playing himself, just running away from this absolutely insane crazy bitch coming after him with rocket launchers and shit. That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It would be insane and it would be hilarious, but it would be awesome.
Well, we find out in the new one that he's been a part of her life all along. She didn't know it was him, but he has been. So kind of. He was the crazy stalker again.
Right, which is, again, that's a rehash of the same thing. I'm talking about turn the tables.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just spitballing.
Ding.
I mean, the way he set it up, he wanted it to do good, to be another. But, no.
I mean, if you're going to do that, then just reboot the damn thing.
Right? And
Remake
to
the
me,
movie
that's
with the new
kind of what he
cast.
did with this one. That's kind of what he did. To me, a good Terminator movie is, okay, we know things are so bleak in the future. I want to see that. I'd like to know what made them, oh my God, we need to go back and try and, kill this kid, I'd like to see that world more than go back to our time,
But see, with all the dicking around with the timeline, is that a prequel or is that a sequel?
Yes.
I don't know.
See, I can make time travel jokes.
But they always show us flashes of what's going on. But I'd like to see all of it, how the decline happened and them slowly take over and how we sat back and let them.
Yeah, that's more than one movie.
Yeah.
You
Well,
turn
we've already
something-
got the prequel to that because we see people walking with their heads in their phones, That's how we let them take over.
And see, we're
Nobody
only
was paying
Well,
attention.
and we're only 10 years away from the time when they sent the Terminator back in time anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of which, have y'all seen online the stuff? I've seen several people bring it up. The fact that now that it's November 2019,
Yes.
we have officially
Oh.
caught up to Blade Runner.
Yes.
Where's my flying car, damn it?
Right. Hell, I'm still waiting for a hoverboard.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the garage getting overhauled.
Getting over up, yeah.
All right, come on. One of y'all's got more notes. Yes, we've shot it all down already, but that shouldn't stop us. We'll just jump back in the timeline again and keep talking about
as
this movie.
much shot and down, I really did like the first and the second one. Like, like we've said, it was a good story. It was one at the time you didn't hear a lot about. And in 84, when you hear that your toaster could rise up and take over, that was kind of like, wow.
Oh my God!
We were just getting microwaves.
We talked about the movies of 1984 already. You could put out anything in 1984 and it was going to be wildly successful. I don't know what the hell it was about that year.
Yeah.
But holy crap! I mean, every movie. I mean, the movies were just. I mean, they just rewrote culture that year for some reason. I don't know who sold their soul to who. But I mean, all of the summoning circles in the Hollywood studios were working overtime that year. Good Lord.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't surprising that a movie that came out in 1984 had a big cultural impact. Well, duh,
Yeah.
they all did. You could run down a list of 50 movies that came out that year that had a big cultural impact.
True.
Much.
Well, in the 80s, too, is when we started to see a boom in the technology field. You know, when cell phones were getting popular and pagers, and these were things we had never heard of, we hadn't heard of them before, you know. Our phones had cords and rotary dials on them, and now you're telling me I could walk around my house and talk on my phone? I mean, that was big stuff. But now, with cell phones that you can fold and put in your pocket, you know, I would go back and say that, you know, mid 80s to the end of the 80s, that's when we started seeing that big boom that people wanted that fancy stuff, and robots were being talked about more. And then a movie like this where, hey, this fancy stuff you want can come back and bite you in the ass. It just kind of was like, wow.
Well, right, and the 80s and this time frame were huge in terms of both sci-fi and horror.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, as we can tell from the Terminator, the combination of the two. I mean, sci-fi, I mean, technology is horror in this movie. And it's not the only one. It was just one of the more successful ones. I mean, it was a big deal. And special effects were getting to be a big thing, too, at this point.
Yeah. And they were getting better.
Yeah, by leaps and bounds.
Mm-hmm. Well, even now when you think of movies coming out, it's always the latest and greatest, and this one's 3D, and this one's HD, and this one's 4D, and this one, you know, it's always, you know, watching in digital, which is like the best thing that AMC has right now as far as IMAX and all that. Even they were announcing coming soon. You know, it's like, wow, how can you go from such a rich, detailed picture and you're going to tell me it's going to get better? You know.
Feel-a-rama.
But in 84, had you have told me that, it would have been like, how can this get better? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this was the first warning.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. What makes your life simple today can be your downfall tomorrow, you know? Or come to looking for you to kill you.
Pretty much.
But
yeah,
I
Thomas,
like
this was a lighter subject. You're right.
Told you.
End of the world.
Mm-hmm. How many new and interesting ways can we come up with to destroy humanity?
Yeah.
The 80s was a dark time. I mean, let's just be honest. People were really friggin' depressed about something. I don't know.
Yeah.
The world was weird back then. That's for sure. That was a weird time.
Yeah. But this was kind of like the Black Mirror series. It's not that technology is killing us. It's we're allowing it to, you know. I'm not saying technology is going to kill it, but you know what I'm saying. The way these movies always go, it's not that it just, you know, I'm going to invent this to kill everybody. We gradually push it to that point.
Improving it and making changes to it until it's at the point where it's going to kill us all. Sure.
Yep.
And ultimately all we have to blame for that is ourselves because we've made ourselves dependent on it. It's usually the dependence that's going to kill us, one way or the other. Yeah.
Alrighty. And on that cheery note, I think we will take a break and come back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It's time for our weekly picks, and Mike leads off.
Yeah, I'm leading off this week, so yeah. Anyway, so my first pick is from IDW, and I'm excited this week because the Dungeons and Dragons titles are back. The series is back. We're getting a new number 1. This one's called Dungeons and Dragons Infernal Tides. This is issue number 1. The same creative team, so Jim Zub and Max Dunbar, and the rest of the gang. And we're still working with Minsk and Boo and their friends. And this time, the problem they're going to have to solve is, the phrase they use here is devil tainted corruption in Baldur's Gate. So, hence the title, Infernal Tides, devils and infernal. Anyway, I'm excited. It's going to be fun. These series are always a lot of fun. You don't even have to be a D&D fan to dig this stuff because it's just great straight up fantasy.
Cool.
Nice. Good to see it back. I am next, and speaking of returning, we actually have Robin Hood coming back. This is the ZenScope Entertainment version, with a new miniseries called Robin Hood Vigilante. And picking up after the last miniseries, she is now not only being hunted by the underground, she's now being hunted by the police. So she is truly on her own, and she's trying to get everything resolved. I've been digging these series of miniseries, and I like this character, so I'm so glad that she is back.
Me too.
Yeah, Outlaw was a really good series, and I think that was the last one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she's not surprisingly, she's pissing everybody off. So it's just a matter of her working through every last person in the world.
Yeah,
she'll get there.
She'll
will.
There. She's persistent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, Les.
My first choice comes from IDW, who bring forward Big Hero 6. This is a new comic based on the Disney XD series, which I've enjoyed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll sit and watch cartoons.
Hey, me
but
too.
These are the characters from the movie, Big Hero 6. So, seeing them get into various small scrapes is a lot of fun. I believe this comic will do the same, giving you short adventures. So step in, have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. Yep.
That one has been a real cute series. I'm glad they put that on Disney.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, Liz.
All right. For my first pick, it's off of the DC Comic Black Label Joe Hillhouse Comics label. It's called The Dollhouse Family. A girl on her 6th birthday gets a dollhouse from her aunt, and inside this dollhouse, it's got the whole little antique family and stuff. Well, later on, she finds out that she can actually go into the dollhouse, and that this antique family's a little bit nicer to her than her original family is. And, the more she goes in, the more she loses touch with reality on this side, which of course makes things even more complicated. To me, reading this and parts of what they've released, this so reminds me of Neil Gaiman's Coraline. I mean, if you loved that story as much as I did, or if you're kind of a Tim Burton fan, because to me that always reminded me of his style, and it often gets confused for him. This one should be right along those lines and be freaking amazing. I've always had a fascination with dollhouses and that kind of thing. So, like I said, reading this one, it's kind of like, wow, I want that dollhouse. Why didn't I ever get one like that? So, like I said, should be good. And also in the back of this, they're giving us the chapter 2 of the Joe Hill Sea Dog story. So kind of a twofer, but I do believe the dollhouse will be ongoing. Yes, it will be an ongoing.
Cool.
And it's kind of cool that the main girl in the story, her name is Alice, which of course we know other Alices who have traveled through weird worlds. So like I said, this was like it was wrote for me.
Yeah, this was on my radar too.
Mm-hmm.
Mine as well.
Yep.
Alrighty, Mike.
Okie dokie. My second pick is from Image Comics, and I'm picking Family Tree #1. Okay, so before we even get to a story, this is written by Jeff Lemire and drawn by Phil Hester. Two favorites of ours, honestly, and so
Yep.
this is almost, I picked this up almost just for that alone. But fortunately, I don't have to pick it up for that alone, because the story is about an 8-year-old girl who starts to transform into a tree. Like, for real. Like, just turning into a tree. And so her family, who is, we'll call them interesting. She is an interesting family. It's a slightly off-kilter family. They've decided that they're going to find a way to fix it. They're going to get her cured of whatever it is that's causing this problem. And they're going to have lots of adventures along the way. And I think this is going to be a really exciting and interesting type of story, if nothing else.
Yeah, this was on my radar as well. I'm kind of intrigued by the premise.
Yep.
Alrighty, I'm up again, and for my second choice, I'm going with Titan Comics, and it's the Doctor Who, the 13th Doctor Holiday Special one-shot. We're not getting a holiday special from the BBC this year, featuring the Good Doctor. They're actually doing a comic book, and this was actually written by Jody Hauser. It's a favorite of ours. And this may sound familiar to you if you've been listening to our podcast, because Mark Weiss mentioned it last week as going to be featuring a variant cover for Comic Book for Kids. So if you'd like to, and it's a nice looking cover. If you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on CB4K, there is the image of that cover and a link to where you may purchase that, and all funds go to Comic Book for Kids to help ship comics to hospitals. So that wasn't the main reason why I picked it. I like Doctor Who. I love the holiday specials. This is closest to a TV holiday special we'll get for the Doctor this year. So, and I like we're big Jody Hauser fans, but this is an added treat of helping out Comic Book for Kids.
Yep, a good cause.
Yep.
Obviously.
Obviously.
Good choice on all fronts.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Alrighty, Les.
My second choice is Folk Lords, #1 from Boom Studios. In this one, they deal with a young man, Ansel, who faces monsters and magic. And the thing is that he lives in that world. Unlike Narnia or Harry Potter, Ansel has to have a quest to find the mysterious folk lords. Boy, that's tough to say.
Kinda, yeah.
To explain the visions that he's having. So on this way, he has to risk everything to find out about the world he has never truly belonged in. So to me, it's a quest, it's mythical, and it's a winner in my book.
I've seen some of the preview art to this, and yeah, he is totally out of the element, because it is a fantasy world, and of course with everybody with robes and all this kind of thing, and he is dressed in a 3-piece suit, so he definitely he stands out. So it's an interesting book. I definitely like the look of it. It looks like it could be a really fun adventure.
Yep, this one was also on my radar too, and part not the least of which, because talk about favorites of ours. This is written by Matt Kent.
Right.
Yes. And Matt Smith as the artist.
Yes.
Yep. Alrighty, Liz.
All right, for my second pick, I'm going with one from Stonebot Comics called Angela Della Morte. This one I have seen before on a place I read some digital comics, and it's called Webtoons. And they gave us a good preview of a couple of pages of this. New technology, they can separate the soul from a body. And Angela takes these, people's bodies at that point and puts her soul into them. And she goes on undercover missions and that kind of thing, which seems like that would be the dangerous part of, the whole thing of doing that, but it's not. The more dangerous part of the mission is when her soul is in between receptacles, or what do you call a body? Is it a receptacle?
Well, in this case, it would be, yeah.
Yeah. So he tries to, because he feeds upon what these souls are made of. So her most challenging part is to get away from this thing and get into the body she needs before, basically death becomes her. So pretty neat, kind of trippy, I didn't know if I would really like a real strong sci-fi, because, come on, we're talking about technology that rips your soul out of your body. But what they've showed of it is pretty cool. From my understanding also, with the Stonebot Comics, they have a thing on the front cover that you can scan those with your phone, and they're now calling it you can try before you buy. So if you scan it with your phone, it'll show you a couple of pages and, kind of the story behind it and that kind of thing, and you can decide if you want to spend your money or not. Like I said, from what I've seen, good story. Kind of surprised me. Didn't think I would be drawn to it, but I'm curious to see where this one goes.
Drawn.
Uh,
No, it sounds really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
All right, and our honorable mention this week is
The Dark Crystal Creation Myths from Boom Studios. Brian Holgan and Brian Frood, who did the cover, bring you a collected edition of Origins of the Skeksis, the Mystics, Gelfling, and the Dark Crystal itself, with all new characters in an epic story. Like I said, Hogan is the writer, but he's joined with Joshua Dysart, Matthew Dow Smith to do the stories. The illustrations are by Alex Sheikman, Lizzie John, and they take various stories, pull this whole collection in, and if I remember correct, this was done as separate books. Is that right, Thomas? not their series, but they had small collected books, and I believe this is the entirety of it.
You may be right.
So I'm in on this one, and when you think about it, this has been around for 30 years itself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm fascinated with the story and the characters. So yeah, I'm in line.
Pretty cool. Some talented people involved there too.
Yeah.
Grace.
Alrighty. Any special shout-outs this week? Or mentions?
No?
No. Just super excited that MCR is on their way back. Did y'all hear that?
What?
My Chemical Romance. They're doing a reunion tour.
Yeah, I did
Yay!
see that. I did see that.
And it was kind of sad because on Twitter, some people were like, huh, the guy who writes my comics was in a band?
Oh, you have
Can I reach
no
through my
idea.
screen and slap you? But as soon as I heard, it was like, oh my God, where's my black lipstick?
That's funny. I thought the exact same thing.
Right?
No, not really.
Oh, this is scary.
But super, super excited. I mean, I was excited when Mikey and Jared got back together to do comics, but to hear that they're going to be making music together again, it's just like, wow. Wow.
I think Liz is excited, guys. I'm not sure.
Just a little bit. There may have been a happy dance involved with this.
Did she say wow?
I think
Wow.
I think she said wow.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
At first I was sad because it looked like they was only going to do one show. And like that show sold out like in 10 minutes, So it was like, oh, that's a bummer. And they're like, no, guys, wait. We're kicking off a whole tour with this. So it's like, yes. And Texas is big enough where they always come here at least once or twice. So, yay. Don't forget us.
Yeah, even if you have to go to Houston, huh?
I would go to Houston. I would walk to Houston.
Damn.
And, it's kind of sad because I was thinking the last concert I went to was a My Chemical Romance concert. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
The bubble thing and all.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, hey, believe me, it's been a few years since I've been to one, too. I feel you.
All right. Go ahead and do our regular shout-outs. First off, I want to thank Pop Goes Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be a part of a great group of fellow podcasts. Definitely go check them out. There will be a link in our show notes. And we also want to thank our brethren podcast known as Podern Family on Twitter for spreading the word of the fellowship. Definitely check them out. The easiest way to do that is just do a search, hashtag Podern Family. And that's all as one word. And just scroll through, see whatever catches your fancy, and download that episode. And definitely check all those great people out. Thank you guys for your support. I also want to thank Manny the Martyr for supplying the music to our podcast. Some talented musicians there, and you don't have to take my word for it. We'll have a link in the show notes for you to check out a couple of their EPs. Thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We do appreciate your support. We'd love to hear from you. Any kind of feedback, question, comment, suggestion, complaint, observation, whatever. We would love to hear from you. There are several ways you can contact us. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and go to the About Us page, and there's a contact form that you can fill out. by all means, follow us on social media. I've already mentioned that we're on Facebook, so go ahead and follow us there, and you'll be kept up to date with some of the stuff that's going on, especially with our meet and cabs and other events that we're going to be setting up down the road. Hint, hint. Obviously, we are on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. By all means, follow us there. If you like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_Geek. And I can be found at TomTC Geek. And if you have a couple of moments while you're downloading our episodes, we would greatly appreciate it if you would rate and review us. Thank you. Was there anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate you listening.
Thanks for listening once again, everybody. We do appreciate your support as always. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,